Hi, this is Matt from tracyandmatt.co.uk, back again with this time an HDR-SR11E for this Handycam from Sony. If you've been following our site for a while, then you'll probably know that we've been doing a bit of a camcorder group test. And in the group test we're actually looking at camcorders of around the £200 to £250 mark. So we thought we'd actually have a look at something that's a little bit more expensive, something that's a bit newer, and see what that bit of extra money actually gets us. So, as I say, this is the HDR-SR11E. This is the obviously PAL version, just been released by Sony, in fact, only over the last sort of month or so, so pretty much a brand new camera. Inside we have operating instructions in English, information and guarantee. There is a AVCHD camcorder software decoder for Windows. Fortunately, there's no Mac software. I've already sort of had a bit of a dive in there. There's an accessories guide, online registration document, notes for computers. There is actually another CD there, which is actually the documentation, but electronically, and then we have manuals for various other languages there. Interestingly, the manual itself, or the printed version of the operating guide, is actually quite lightweight. It's quite thin. I've had a little look through it already, and it doesn't cover an awful lot. So if you want to find out, sort of get down to the real nitty-gritty details of the camera, you're going to have to do it using the electronic version using your PC. So inside the box, well, I guess the most obvious thing right in the middle here is going to be the camera itself. There we go. We'll have a proper look around that in just a second. If we carry on looking at the other bits and pieces, we have a little dock. So the actual camcorder sits on this dock, so that you can actually connect up the power cable, an AV out, USB. Actually, interestingly, there doesn't seem to be an HDMI connector on there, so you won't be connecting it in here and sort of leaving it next to your TV, perhaps. But that's the dock itself. There's a remote control, which is pretty standard Sony remote control. There's a SCART connector here that I can see, which is an adapter for composite and audio to SCART. Power cable. There's a mains charger there, which is again a pretty standard Sony camcorder charger. I've got other camcorders that have got exactly the same connector. There is a component cable, complete with like a standard Sony style connector there, and there's the RGB. So composite cable, again with that connector on the other end, and last of all, a USB cable, which is a standard mini USB to USB for connecting up to your PC, downloading the files and so on. Look at the camcorder itself. It's quite chunky compared to some of the others that we looked at recently, and it's not the lightest, but you've got to consider the specification, which I'll run through in a second. Around the camcorder itself, got the lens on the front, which is obviously closed at the moment, and there is a flash next to that. There's also a backlight button, an area here which is your infrared remote control sensor, and also an infrared emitter so that you can do night shooting. There's also this dial on the front with a push button, which is a great idea and a great sort of interface, if you like. This actually is the autofocus or focus control, so you can push the button in the center to take it out of autofocus and turn the dial to use manual focusing, or push the button again to put it back into autofocus. So a nice way of using manual focus on a camcorder there. Nice idea. On the top you have left and right and kind of rear microphone there, very condensed in one unit there, but it will actually record in Dolby 5.1 using those three microphones. There's also the shoe on the top, which is the advanced interface for mobile lights and also microphones and so on. They actually plug in the top here, and underneath there is actually sort of a connector, so when you actually put the microphone or whatever in, it does actually reveal the connectors underneath. There is a viewfinder, So unlike the other devices and camcorders that we looked at just recently, this does have a viewfinder as well as the pop-out screen. And the pop-out screen, I'll just turn the actual camera on. Pop-out screen has some buttons down the side. It is a widescreen there, but it is touch screen, so we can actually go through some of the settings, and we can look at some of the videos that we've already got recorded, look at the stills, which I don't have any, go into print mode, slideshows and so on, and obviously go through all the camera settings and functions, as you can see there. This screen is actually quite large and it's really high res. I think it's like 900,000 pixels, which it really does show over and above sort of like the 200,000 pixel mark camcorder screens that I've seen. So really good for previewing, and obviously if you're taking stills, really good to actually see that on there. So yeah, quite impressed with the actual slide out screen. Inside we've got a couple of controls, one for burning DVDs or CDs, which you can do if you actually connect up an external DVD recorder. It have to be a Sony one, I assume. Display modes, turns off the display actually on there for the different battery settings and everything else. An easy mode, night shot on and off, and playback mode, so we can actually put it into play mode or into record mode using a button rather than touch screen. There's a little flap over the memory card slot, so you can actually insert memory stick Pro Geo cards, which allows you to record stills, and you can actually record video onto there if you wish, because you can change the settings. So on the back, got the battery itself. The little release here actually pops the battery out. Again, it's a standard Sony battery, so you can get these in most retailers, and obviously they come in different capacities and sizes. So that pops in the back there. Shoe on the bottom, that's where it picks up on our dock, and then obviously a connector for connecting the tripod. Flap over the DC in so that we can actually charge it. Multifunction dial, which actually turns the camera off, on, and between still and video mode. Pushing the button obviously in the centre starts and stops recording. There's also a quick on, so you can actually leave the camera in like a hibernate mode, and you push the quick on button, and it does literally come on extremely quickly. On the top, we've got a button that will allow you to take a still, which is a press button, and then there's the zoom control, and also the zoom control is very good, like many other Sony camcorders. If I can actually just turn that on and hopefully show you what I mean. It is actually quite sensitive, so you can do a slow zoom as well as a very fast zoom in and out, which is quite nice. Some of the other camcorders we looked at recently have got no control over the zoom. It's sort of zoom in, zoom out rather than a soft control. So that's quite a nice feature. So on the side, underneath here, we have the connector for the USB and the AV out. Again, I like this sort of design here, that it's actually a cover that slides and doesn't remove. There's not something that's going to come off and get lost. That's quite good. And the same with this cover over the front. It rocks out of the way. It's kind of hinged. It's not going to come off. It's fairly sturdy, and it's not something you're going to lose. So underneath here, we've got an external microphone socket, headphone socket, and the HDMI connector. This particular model has a 60 gig built-in hard drive, so you can record on there. I think it's around 22 hours that you can get on. It's kind of at the lowest video quality mode, and a good few hours, obviously the highest quality mode. I'll confirm that in the written spec when we actually sort of come to do a bit of a review. But here it says, as you see here, 22 hours at 5 megabits per second. 10.2 megapixel stills. I think that's an interpolated mode. I believe I've read here somewhere the actual sensor is a 5.6 megapixel sensor, so 10.2 I guess is an interpolated video mode. It does record full HD 1080 by, or sorry, 1920 by 1080, and also there's like a lower shooting mode which is 1440 by 1080. That does also go right down to sort of like a quite basic video mode and like an SD mode rather than HD. It's a 12 times optical zoom, and there also is a digital zoom built in, up to 150 times. As I say, it records Dolby Digital 5.1, but you can also just switch that into normal stereo mode. Records in widescreen as well as a 4:3 mode via the menu control. Got night shot and super night shot. As I say, you can illuminate your night shot shooting subjects using an infrared beam there, which works quite well. So, and there is a scene selection mode, so varying scenes can actually have different settings. Again, there's so many that's probably, I can't really mention them all here, but I'll mention that in the actual written spec and review. Say, not the lightest of cameras, but you've got to consider specification. Full HD, there is the 60 gig built-in hard drive. You can record on memory stick as well as the hard drive. You've got a really long recording time of up to 22 hours. Battery life seems to be quite good. When I first turned it on, started it up, it was saying I had 120 minutes of battery time, and I don't think that the battery was even fully charged, so probably got quite a long endurance when you're recording, so that's quite nice. And you haven't got to worry about carrying around various media like memory cards or tapes or DVDs. You know, if you take this on holiday, if you're going to record more than 22 hours when you're on holiday, then I don't think you're going to be very popular with your friends when you come back. But you know, 22 hours is more than enough. You'll probably find that you'll record, you know, weeks and weeks worth of footage, and you may not even take it off the camera. You may just use this as your library, so that's quite good in that respect. Going to do a full review, obviously, due course. Probably going to be actually using this camera as well for doing our recordings of unboxings and previews and reviews and so on. And we're actually hoping to improve the quality, fingers crossed, of the videos that we're doing, and we'll be back with a review at some point soon.